The hypersonic phase just started, not in the sky, not in a battlefield you can see, but in the decisions being made behind closed doors, in war rooms, central banks, and strategic command centers across the world. Global powers are not just reacting anymore, they are preparing, quietly, systematically, for something bigger, something that goes beyond regional conflict, something that could reshape the global order itself. Because this time the signals are different. They are not loud, they are not obvious, but they are consistent. Military budgets rising at record pace, supply chains being restructured, strategic reserves being filled, alliances tightening, and most importantly, financial systems being repositioned. Think about this. A $20,000 drone can now challenge a billion-dollar defense system. A single disruption in a shipping lane can shake global markets. A sanction can freeze billions in assets overnight. This is the new battlefield. Not just tanks and missiles, but money, supply chains, and infrastructure. And that's why this matters, because when global powers start preparing across all these layers at once, military, economic, financial, it's not for a minor conflict. It's for something bigger, something systemic. Now let's go deeper. Look at military spending. Global defense budgets have surged, trillions of dollars being allocated, not just for immediate threats, but for long-term capability. Hypersonic weapons, cyber warfare, space-based systems. These are not defensive investments. These are strategic, because modern conflict is no longer limited to physical territory. It extends into digital space, into financial systems, into global infrastructure. Now look at supply chains. Countries are no longer optimizing for efficiency. They are optimizing for security. Manufacturing is being relocated. Critical industries are being brought closer to home. Strategic resources are being stockpiled. This is not normal economic behavior. This is preparation. Preparation for disruption. Now consider energy. Energy markets are becoming increasingly volatile. Supply routes are under pressure. Strategic reserves are being used and replenished. Because energy is the lifeline. Control the energy, control the system. And when powers start securing that lifeline, it signals concern about future instability. Now here's the contrast that defines this moment. On the surface, the world still appears stable. Markets function, trade continues, diplomacy exists. But underneath, the system is shifting. From cooperation to competition, from globalization to fragmentation. This is the core conflict, and it's not happening in one place. It's happening everywhere. Now let's talk about the financial layer, because this is where the real story unfolds. The global financial system is built on trust. Trust in currencies, trust in institutions, trust in stability. But that trust is being tested. Countries are reducing reliance on a single currency, building alternative payment systems, diversifying reserves. This is not random, this is strategic positioning. Because in a major conflict, control over financial systems becomes a weapon. Sanctions, asset freezes, trade restrictions. These are modern tools of war, and global powers are preparing for their use. Now let's connect this to history, because this pattern has played out before. Before major global conflicts, there are always signals: rising military spending, strategic alliances, economic repositioning. Before World War I, alliances formed and tensions built quietly. Before World War II, economies shifted toward war production long before conflict officially began. The signs were there, but they were not obvious to everyone. Now look at today. The signs are different, but the pattern is similar. Preparation, not for immediate conflict, but for the possibility of one. Now go even further back. Empires throughout history have followed a similar cycle: growth, expansion, competition, conflict. And at the center of that cycle is money. Because wars are not just fought with weapons, they are funded, and funding determines duration. Outcome. Now look at the current system. Global debt has exceeded $300 trillion. This creates vulnerability. Because high debt limits flexibility, it makes economies sensitive to shocks. And in times of conflict, shocks are inevitable. Now consider inflation. Inflation erodes purchasing power, forces central banks to act, tighten policy. But tightening policy increases financial pressure. This is the trap, and it reduces the ability to respond effectively to crises. Now combine this with geopolitical tension, and you get a system under stress, a system preparing for impact. Now let's look forward. In the next 24 to 72 hours, there may not be a dramatic escalation, no major declaration, but the underlying process will continue. Military movements, economic adjustments, financial positioning, because preparation does not stop, it accelerates. In the longer term, the implications are massive. A more fragmented global system, competing alliances, reduced cooperation, increased risk of conflict. Not necessarily a single large-scale war, but multiple points of tension. Simultaneously, this creates instability, because the system is no longer unified. Now here's the most important point. Preparation itself changes behavior. Markets react, investors become cautious, governments adjust policies. This creates a feedback loop, and that loop can accelerate events. Now here's the final warning. Global powers preparing for a bigger conflict is not just about war, it's about a shift in the global system, from stability to uncertainty, from integration to fragmentation. History shows us what happens next. When systems reach this phase, they change. Not always through direct conflict, but through pressure, through competition, through disruption. The only question is this: are we witnessing precaution or the early stages of a global shift that will redefine power, finance, and stability for decades to come?